Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. Why is it necessary or even valuable to wonder about what serves cosmic vision? 4 billion years, a long time, it took for this science project called humanity to stand as it is. When we wonder about the cosmic vision, it's as if we're wondering about the body of existence. And so we find ourselves as an extension of the world that is aware that it is here. That is fundamentally the value of the human being. We know, we know in ways that many other entities do not. The human being brings with it the intelligence of a discriminatory field of intelligence. You see, you are a cosmically aware being because you are an awareness in the cosmos. Most people are responding and reacting to the world behind their eyes. To truly see the world in front of your eyes, it requires to not touch it. You gotta acquire, in some sense, I call it the unspeakable and untouchable state of being. It is how you're already being in a way where no thought or language or image can contain. As if a part of your existence is being so truly existent that prior to any notion, concept, or image, there's something there. And so it's important because why do you need to serve the vision of the cosmos? When we find ourselves as temporary creatures in a certain world of a certain level of advancement, I believe most people in 2019, they just want to enjoy the roller coaster ride. And there is no greater story or spirit kind of uniting us. Regardless of how truth is found or accepted, let me tell you why truth can never be found by human beings, the truth for all of them. The reason is because we understand things through language. It's as if like the same way we're using language to divide the world into meaning and structures and patterns and various relationships of various intelligent dimensions, it's kind of like the person putting his piece of like an important piece of paper, the employee putting it in the shredder and then giving it to the manager. The manager's like, what is this? I can't like, nobody can read shredded paper, so pretty much in some sense, but pretty much in some sense what I'm saying is that language is shredding reality or breaking it into many pieces. And as we identify with the broken piece, we in some sense stop identifying with the whole object. So imagine there was a cup of water in front of you and you're like, okay, this is a cup of water, I see it, it's obviously a cup of water. Suddenly this cup of water breaks, and now imagine you identify with a single piece, broken piece of that cup, or many broken pieces of that cup, rather than the whole cup. So what was to you just one cup has now shattered into various worlds of their own. And for me, it seems like the intelligence of the human being, it is a remnant. It is like an echo that reached the ear of a creature it should never have. The servants of cosmic vision are living beings who have had enough of masks. This civilization wears masks you won't believe. Don't think when you go on the street, the people you see are the people you see. Don't even think the family members you have are the family members you have. You see, everybody knows that there is something, they know that their eyes belong to them, and in some sense there is a sort of domain of subjective privacy. It's as if like it's a good thing we cannot read people's, like people cannot read each other's thoughts, because if they did, there would be no point for language. No point for communication. So it's as if a limitation. What is seen as a limitation in a higher dimension is an advancement in a lower is an advancement in a lower dimension. What is seen as higher in a lower dimension is actually lesser in a higher dimension. What I'm trying to tell you is what dimensions is how experience maintains the conscious projection. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, what is here? Let's just wonder here. I'll use myself as the example, okay? If in this moment, let's imagine like I forget everything and I just wonder what I am. Okay, let's say as if I wonder, I don't want to say because I don't believe a person can forget. They can forget that they know, but they cannot forget. You cannot forget what you're being, pretty much. That's what I'm saying. You can't forget. You're a vision in the cosmos. You have separated from the world in order to be in the world. Now that you're in the world, you're wondering what your purpose is, or what the purpose of existence is. The purpose of individual existence is to find its origin. There's only two ways a person can go. You either wonder about your beginning or you wonder about your end, because either way, you're always in the middle. So when a person wonders about their beginning, you're going towards the cause of experience in existence. Okay? When you go towards the end, when a phenomena ends, that can be enlightening as much as when a phenomenon begins. Fundamentally, I find that it's very incredible. We treat ourselves as human beings, okay, but we don't realize we are living in words that can never be us. Sometimes, like when I take life too seriously, I get defined by it, so I don't see myself in any other way, so I get stressed that way. But that rarely happens. For me, it's like you gotta first. Buddha said this pretty nicely. He said, "Okay, everybody, listen. In the path, you want to walk the enlightening path, okay." Buddha's like first acknowledge that every person enters this world alone, and strangely, we leave this world alone. Now there is notions of true love, kind of two lovers, in some sense, kind of not wanting, you know, wanting to be together or whatnot. But I find that intelligence has a value that transcends a character's decision. This is something very fascinating. I'm going to tell you. There's intelligent phenomena going on in this planet that doesn't have a mind, but it's intelligent. Because for now, the human being has no way of explaining intelligence by saying it's the mind, it's the mind's ability. Because we cannot see more than the body, we think there's only the body. It's as if imagine you're in a dark room and you only see the light of your phone screen, and you think in the whole room the only thing that exists is just that light of your phone. But the moment the lights are turned on, many dimensions of reality will I also said it will recalibrate and readjust your initial meaning upon life. You see, life is playing catch with you. It throws some data at you, you throw some data back at it. But the way the human being throws data back at it is that it internally amplifies the individual existence. So in order for me to speak, I have to be an individual. But in order for me to have what I say as an individual to be heard, there must be a collective. So in order for me to consider a collective, it's as if I suddenly see the interdependence of the micro and the macro. So pretty much what happens is that in this cosmic reality, there is patterns. We notice patterns. Suddenly we see patterns that are occurring in the small. We consider this the microcosmic. We see patterns starting as occurring in the big. We see this as the macrocosmic. However, the true path of enlightenment and clarity and meditation, of course, Swami Krishnananda from the Divine Life Society, he says something very interesting. He's a yogi, and as a yogi, he said that he had two very interesting sentences. He said one, God, religion is God remembering Himself, and then he said. The inseparability when meditation is no longer necessary, when the inseparability of the individual activity and the collective cosmic activity is perceived. You see, right now we're experiencing ourselves as particles. We're like, how are these particles here? How are these electrons having a mind? Eventually, we're coming to realize it's not that the electron has a mind. It's not even that there is a mind. It's a field of intelligence, where energy does not discriminate. So everything you see in existence, strangely, returns to a source. This source is not, it doesn't have an attribute. It's just like how right now as I'm speaking, the listener is not what is being listened to. You see, there's that additional unknown dimension in the presence of experience beyond the personality. Yeah. Rabindranath Tagore, this Indian polymath who even Einstein went to visit him. Albert Einstein went to visit Rabindranath Tagore, and pretty much Rabindranath Tagore. He doesn't say this to Einstein, but he has this very nice quote which relates to the talk. He says, just a second, guys. I am changing the song I'm listening to. Rabindranath Tagore says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. In other words, he's saying he thought the purpose of life was to just live for himself. Then he realized the purpose of life is to live for the world. Then he realized in living for the world he had lived for himself. That's the elegance. So when I say servants of cosmic vision, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, you know why human beings constantly find in our movies or in various themes where the human being is manipulated? or extraterrestrials are attacking Earth and human beings are like the underdog or whatever. Like, let me tell you why. It is because we sell ourselves too short. We believe. We believe too soon. We don't understand how to even use beliefs. A belief is not something you just hold. You can't say I have a belief or I believe. I don't believe that because let me tell you why. Because language cannot be owned. These words that I'm saying, maybe the unique way I'm sequencing these words and saying them and sharing them, that can be ascribed to my personality in this life. But the words, I do not own them. Just like how I don't own these atoms that are being me. It's as if a significance and a precision in the intelligence of nature for manifestation to be present. Do you know, I've tried to, I've wondered when I was younger, because I didn't wonder beyond the objective, I didn't care about my thoughts. My thoughts were like the unknown factor. That's why TV and entertainment was very, when I was younger, it was as if like, why imagine things when it can be fed to you? It's as if the child is spoon-fed food. TV is imagination being spoon-fed to the child. Imagination and reality depends on the channel. You know, you could be seeing news and whatnot. But for me, the thing is that because the educational system of the planet is a bit confused, human beings don't know what to do. Because they have to survive, the economical situation surpasses any other atmosphere. What I mean by that is that, trust me guys, we all, every human being who chooses to live in society, you have a boss. And this boss, whether you have a job or not, you don't realize it, but it is a sort of survival in a financial jungle. The world has become incredibly complex. Back in the day, the farmer would work a few hours, a few months throughout the year and enjoy the rest of the year. Okay? For example, in the Philippines, farmers, I remember hearing one speak online. And so the farmers, like, the life was very simple. A couple, a couple months throughout the year, they would just work, and the rest of the year, they had time to be. They had time to, in some sense, not constantly be chained to a process. You see, for me, work, actual an occupation work, legit work, is something that it will drain you and it will break you unless you have a passion. You see, unless you accept the suffering that comes with the unique program. It's very interesting. I was thinking, okay, you hear this saying, people say, excuse my language, but they say karma is a bitch. Okay? You know, and the reason they say that is because they have experienced the boomerang effect of some intellectual form. But karma is in some sense a vehicle. It's like the program you're in. Once you step out of the program of thought that you have been indoctrinated into, you suddenly find a liberation of a neutrality. That means it's okay for not everything to have meaning all the time. It is okay for life to move before you move it in a certain way in your attention. That was my greatest lesson. It was very fascinating. It's as if like I remember a challenge that came to my mind, and not whatever. I mean, definitely there's been challenges I couldn't hold the sword for, but in some sense, I'm saying like my mind wondered about the structure. And when I saw a problem, I realized, I don't know, since childhood, I just had this quality where it was kind of foolish, but it was non-stop. It was like the endurance of an honest fool. It's as if you know what to do and you just do it endlessly. And eventually, the problem, once being challenged every moment, suddenly gives in. So for me, life is very incredible. It's something maybe not taught to many people. Your moment of being, don't try to know it and don't try to avoid it. it's like a Rubik's cube of the moment. I remember when I was young in Iran, they gave me the Rubik's cube, okay, and I saw the Rubik's cube and I played with it, and I remember hours I was trying. Eventually, I had found a way to get get to the like 2/3 of the Rubik's cube. I could finish it, and then the last was just left to randomity. So in my various unique approaches, this is before I even knew Rubik's cube. The Rubik's cube had an algorithm. It's pretty much any person who can build IKEA furniture can solve the Rubik's cube. Do you know? When once you follow the algorithms, but without the algorithms, it becomes a total jungle of possibilities of various movements. It requires a very special mind to, I find, 100% completed. I mean, I managed. Me and my brother found a way to like event. So guys, what I'm trying to say is that, okay, man, I'm opening up too many storylines. My own personal attempt brought me close, where I remember the closest I got to solving the full Rubik's Cube, before I had the algorithms, was to two pieces. So I had solved it somehow randomly and coincidentally, and there were only two pieces of this Rubik's Cube that weren't made yet, you know? And but when I found the algorithms, it was then just a process of a very simple memorization, and then it just, you can solve the Rubik's cube from wherever, because you recognize a pattern and you actually bring it towards a pattern. So what I'm trying to say is that the next Rubik's cube for me was in some sense mysticism, because it was a question. It's like, whether it's like it doesn't matter. I would probably have lived the same life I am living right now, only if I had just heard the word spirit and nothing else, because the concept commands exploration of the inner being. You see, for me, I realized this is the issue. If one is an eternal being, they have to wonder about the depth and the contrast of this eternity. What I mean by that is that, are you eternal as space, or are you eternal as a form? When you're eternal as a form, they call it immortality. When you're eternal as space, that is just, again, just eternity. What I mean by that is that when you're intelligent as space, they call that eternity. So you can say it like this: as you serve the cosmic vision, there, by the way, there's a saying that many generals and kind of like leaders in humanity have thought like this, where they say you must serve before you command. That means you must really see what you're moving in order to be able to move it. That means if somebody gives you like a bunch of stuff and you don't know where to put it, you're going to be just holding that, and eventually you're going to get tired and you're going to put it down. That's the sort of mentality of the person who discontinues after the continuity is not made easy. You see, let me tell you like this. If you treat your moment as a relationship between what is known to you and what is unknown to you, you activate your true intelligence. But if you just assume the whole moment is known, or if you just assume the whole moment is unknown, eventually your free will cease to exist. So it's kind of like we're trying to tune this guitar, that we're trying to find a sort of, let's say, in quotations, meditative state, where in this meditative state, the known and the unknown are inseparably the same moment. This is just the effort of wisdom on this planet. Let me tell you what wisdom is, ladies and gentlemen. Wisdom is seeing emptiness where there is fullness, and seeing fullness where there is emptiness. You got to realize your mind keeps this world alive with dualities because it has no other way to contain it. And I'll tell you guys, there's been moments where I've seen physically in front of me, like I've walked downtown Toronto and I've seen certain defeated people on the streets where inside I remember it's as if like there's some days that you can never have a good day when you see a member of your species is not. It's too easy not to care. That's the issue. It doesn't seem like the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Like logically, rationally, we're just objective temporary beings. Why do we care about civilization? Let's all just be anarchists and just get what we want and have fun and like, YOLO. That's for me. That's a tragedy. It's a tragedy when intelligence devolves. Like, just imagine. Just imagine the evolutionary difference of state between how a chimpanzee moved around between tree branches, or you know or how a chimpanzee like managed twigs and its food, and compared to how, for example, we have like great human beings. Imagine like some incredibly wealthy billionaire, advanced, kind of always working over 100 hours a week, working kind of CEO. Okay, we're gonna see, or not we're gonna see this person who is mad. It's like the human being can manage what is here and also what is not here, but animals can only manage what is here. It's as if, let me tell you, I have always wondered something from the religious text. I was raised in Iran like till the age of 7, and then I came to Vancouver, Canada. But when I was in Iran, and of course, I went back and forth in the summers to visit. A majority of my family was there. Our intelligence is unknown and astonishing. Nothing is more exciting than finding new dimensions. Sorry guys, it's I am torn. I am torn by my values and by the ability of some part of my subtler planes of abstraction and imagination. Like, I could look at this world and I could see many different ways it can be occurring. Because I see these different ways it can be occurring, it makes me wonder why certain things are just being done in one way. I'm starting to realize that children are being born thinking that it's kind of like there's an illusion that's being accepted as truth. And the most important thing is that, like, I believe we need a global community of scholars and philosophers to, in some sense, wonder about the morality. To wonder about the morality of the future, you know? It's kind of like, let me tell you what the unknown is. The unknown is kind of like how you see the shadow of an object, which you don't know what that object is. Let's say some random object you've never seen. You're seeing its shadow first on a wall. Okay? So that shadow is something. Okay? It's some sort of level of design, but you still don't know what it is a shadow of. You don't know the true design of the immediate design. This Sufi mystic poet by the name of Hafez, um, this Persian poet from, I believe, 700 years ago or something, he said the sun casts infinite shadows. The one sun casts infinite shadows. What it means is that one moment of existence presents very many, like infinite, unique kind of patterns of intelligence. Kind of like you see that Pink Floyd album cover, and you see in some sense how one light beam goes through the prism, and in some sense becomes the color spectrum. A family of colors is born out of one light beam. So it's kind of like, that's kind of religion. Religion is the explanation of light. It's very strange, guys. Don't you find this strange? That when we look at how when light goes through a prism, it's as if one phenomena is being all those colors. One light beam, white light beam, is being all the colors. You know, it's very fascinating. So how do you serve the cosmos? Should you go follow a belief? Should you go join like a society or something? Should you just go in a cave and meditate? How should you serve the cosmos or a cosmic vision? So this is Mr. Within's recommendation, and I am one person, one man among 8 billion, and this is just how my eyes have opened up to the world. Okay, so when you guys are listening to me speak, for me, it will break my heart if I feel that you don't see the big in the small and the small in the big. That's the thing. I'll get what that means is any person you've seen who you think they're strong, know that they have moments of great weakness. That is why they have moments of great strength. Know that any person you see with a weakness, with a flaw, know that the reason that being has that flaw is because they have an incredible strength, untapped strength. Life is, it's like, this is what I've learned. You have to forgive the moment because you can't tell nature what to do. So it has to do with a kind of embrace of your intelligence in an unknown fascination. That's the what better way? It's kind of like like the person's phone has like a limited signal, and then he leaves the parking lot or that like kind of space, and suddenly it has more bars, more reception of its existence. So for me, it's that this is what it is. The ego is nothing to fight against, like certain mystical traditions that I found this kind of comedic. Okay, they were fighting with the ego. They saw the ego as this disgusting illusion that they had to get out of. Like, you don't believe there were certain yogis. There was this yogi that came to America. I don't know the guy's name, but I remember reading this article online. And this yogi evidently came to America, and suddenly one person around him saw this dude meditating in a bathroom. And the guy came and asked this kind of like guy meditating in a bathroom. He's like, "Hey man, why are you meditating?" It's like, "Why are you meditating in a bathroom?" You know? And so the yogi, look at the kind of mentality of that yogi, of that person. He was like, because the stench of physical reality, is more, it's like the stench of physical reality and illusion is worse. What he meant is that the dude rather be isolated in a shitty place. Excuse my language, but that's literally like what was happening. Like the dude was would have rather be isolated in a shitty place rather than to be in a world where one can be pulled towards chaos. You see, the reason we all have homes and houses is because we want to have spaces where there's order. And the human being wants to have a space where the free will generates its order. You see? So the strength of your mind has to do with the freedom of self from self, strangely. You have to stop seeing the cosmos in a certain way so you can see it in a new way. For me, novelty is very important to understand. Novelty, like, how do you know something is new? How do you know something is new? You only know that it's new for you. There's been moments where it's strange, guys. Like, of course, my mind is is silly and playful, so it suddenly dives into imaginative landscapes that are even uncommon for me. But you certain sages have kind of spoken about the mind like as if it's a surface of the pond. Okay, so imagine right now as I'm speaking, my mind the surface of a pond which was still before I spoke. Like when I was like this talk hadn't started, there was a moment of silence. I tend to be very not very, but I mean, like I don't know how to say it. Like I can acknowledge silence easily. It's as if like you don't believe it, but in this life I've been silenced in so many ways. Literally, like it's, how can I tell you? It's silence is not an issue. For me, it was a sort of imprisonment, yeah, especially in my childhood where there was a sort of theocratical society. So for me, as if religious authority was put into like my mind very early. And it wasn't put like my parents, of course, like my father was secular, and he was secular, but he was also very, his mentalities opened up to his own spiritual dimensions. And how can I tell you guys? It's very easy to devalue something that you can't see. Anyways, I don't want to go too off topic, but the various ways that you see the world can lead to two implications. It can imply two things. That means like a changing world can imply two things. It can either imply a sort of edge of change, like the evolution of change, or it can reveal the changeless. So as your mind is like a pond, as I'm saying words right now, and these are kind of like rocks being thrown in the pond, as if like moments of intelligent activity. Think of it this way, as if the brain is like at a sort of kind of general level, and then when a person speaks, various like parts of the brain are kind of lighting up with neural activity. Okay, so let's say we consider it like this. So it's kind of like that's the same way of saying it's like a pond where they're throwing rocks in. And so when a person enters silence, you enter it. What I mean by that is that as you stop resisting, literally you stop having a sort of unique program on this world and you watch it first. You first watch what's here, then you decide. That's the issue with the confusion of the world. We think we are all evolved. We are not evolved. We are a young species, like ridiculously young. That means we're still playing costume games. The deeper dimensions of the mind have not even been comprehended for there to be an acknowledgement of collective memory. Because once there's an acknowledgement of collective memory, suddenly human beings will live it, like literally the child's eyes will open and a world will be like, whoa, there is a sort of field of intelligence that all the human activity finds itself once it aligns and steps into that vision. So certain sages have said, as the mind is like this pond, it's like let the waters settle. Rumi says this, let the waters settle and you shall see the moon and the stars mirrored in your being. The moon and the stars means the truth, and the reflection of the truth becomes revealed. For me, we have to take the attention of the children of the world back to a fascination in how their biology is present. That means a very sophisticated kind of advanced approach into structuring the human civilization stepping forth from 2019 would in some sense be to create a sort of, how would I say it? How would I say it? um, think of it think of it this way, that everything our ancestry, all human beings so far have done, has been to shelter the children of the future generations, their eyes, from that which was unnecessary for their attention to be on. That means why did the human being, how did the Homo sapien, I mean, what was the a purpose of the Homo sapien getting out of the food chain? What that means is there was a time where it's as if like, our human beings, their job was to run away from creatures that were chasing them. This is why I think like when a human being runs and suddenly fear approaches, I think certain evolutionary patterns in the DNA kind of are evoked. So suddenly, trust me, there's been moments in this life where I have thought and then movement has occurred, and there's been moments in this life where movement has occurred and then there has been thought. And our species, unfortunately, because of the beliefs it has, because of the stories it wears as masks, it fails to see the incredible unknown dynamism of static knowledge. So, like right now, as I'm speaking, you are seeing like the word appears and then the image arises in your mind, for example, or whatever comes to your mind when you hear these words, But at the same time, the space between the words, at least in my mind, image is also still there. It's as if I have not communicated it or shared it. So when I speak, for example, I don't speak with a sort of like, I don't think in words. Um, I say, I'll tell you like this. It's as if I'm seeing a movie in my mind, and I'm just putting words to that movie. I'm extracting language out of a certain subjective dynamism. Some people feel they don't have enough time, and there's some people, like Plato, who said time is the moving image of eternity. Imagine, like, what he's saying is time is like another poetic way that Mr. Within could say it is time is the shadow of eternity. For me, there's something here. This thing that's here is intelligent enough to know it's here, and because it's intelligent enough to know it's here, it has an ability to be something. Okay, the fact that we are moving as particles, I mean, like, one of the most biggest questions in philosophy is, how can an electron have a mind? How can a group of electrons suddenly evolve after billions of years to the sophistication of a busy CEO, reading a newspaper on a plane? The human evolution is not per se just based on the individual's free will. It is also like a seed planted in the soil of this planet, as if we are not from this world, but we are planted in it. So we have opened our eyes objectively as creatures that identify with being the world, okay, being a part of the world. However, the true nature of the being, it's as if like any person who puts a definition to truth has not understood it. Truth is not in language. Language is a tiny percentage of reality. And then that tiny percentage has so many biases you won't believe. So language is like, it's a playful technology. Don't get obsessed with it. Use it when you need it. And then one finds contentment with the silence, they are also finding contentment with an inner silence. That inner silence frees the imagination from any pattern. So what that means is you suddenly realize that you are you realize you have created your mind, you have created your memory, you will realize you have created how you have attained meaning out of the data. Your senses are like data, and then what occurs, how we process data as creatures, it's strange because we transform through notion of self. So let's say if right now I'm saying myself is this physical body and who I think, that these thoughts that appear right now, okay, so this sense of self is like a static snapshot in time. Okay, now in various moments, and as we see life is not a still photo, it is a moving thing, and it's very fascinating when one finds a new honor with the dimensions of reality. And I'm speaking with an appreciation of scientific multidimensionality as well. You see, for me, it doesn't matter if it's a scientist or if it's a religious person. What I see is just creatures on a rock making mouth noises, where these mouth noises are being imagined even in deeper ways. So without imagination, understanding would not exist. Imagination implies the unknown, so without the unknown, knowledge would not exist. So the source of knowledge is unknown, and that's where we step out of the linguistic simulation. We move beyond the language threshold. And this is a concept that you don't understand. It's like I feel so alone in sharing it. Okay? I feel no one has understood this concept of the language threshold, which I'm saying, you know? And let me tell you why. Because if they had, the educational system could not be kept the way it is. Sometimes it's not that a person, it's like the person, any person who's trying to be good all the time or trying to be bad all the time, it's as if like, it's like you can't tell a fool what to do, but at the same time, a fool's mistake can become the world's mistake. You know? So it's one of those things where sorry about that, guys. I definitely have to ask my lungs for forgiveness, you know, at some point. I want to tell you this. We have certain tools at our disposal, and these tools that are at our disposal is how our mind organizes itself. And when I say the mind organizes itself, you definitely see design in this world has to do with organization. Even science cannot reject this because it's an organization of atoms, atomic structure, that is being the object scientifically. You see, even in religiously, we find there to also be an organization. For there to be an organization, but the God is unknown, of course. God is like not the person who's giving the problem, and it's not the person who's giving the answer. God is the whole moment. You see, God is a word that means the unknown. It's a preservation of the unknown eternal value. So religion, I think, stayed so long. I mean, it's fascinating, guys. You see, I understand why certain people are drawn to religion, because it's as if these ancient structures of thought that are preserved, and it's as if it has an incredible heritage, and it's as if we're gonna realize, it's as if it's very easy to kind of like wonder about the future and understand that the action of the current moment is designing it. And sometimes we get so caught by the burdens of the world, by the processes of the world that we have enrolled in, engaged with, or signed up for, we're going to see it's as if because of the incredible expansion of vision and imagination of the modern age, we get bored with too much objective repetition. That means there's certain health specialists that say you got to change your body. It's like when you move, like a person who dances, they change their emotional state and their, I guess, you know, how they conceive things as thoughts and whatnot. So it's as if like your body influences how thoughts appear. So if the body influences thoughts appear, eventually what will remain as the ultimate is just the pure attention. When you become pure attention, it's very funny because that's the state where I believe Shakespeare reached that state. For me, Shakespeare had a sort of enlightened vision to him, to his work. And because he saw how life could be a tragedy and comedy, and how life was actually a sort of theatrical performance, instead of the actors being on stage, the actors were living real life as the thoughts that they shared and composed. So what that means is, it's like, imagine somebody who's an actor, he acts in a film and then goes home and then suddenly gets this mystical, imagine like a Zen monk suddenly comes to this person out of nowhere. It's like this guy's eating dinner at his house and out of nowhere a Zen monk appears and he's like, yo, what are you doing here, Zen monk, you know? And the Zen monk suddenly tells this guy that the world is an act. And you can choose to live in knowledge, or you can choose to wonder about an unknown life. For me, you can't contain it. That's the point of it. It's like it's a blessing that life changes. It's a blessing that we are not the same person we used to be, because we get to experience the deeper dimensions of selfhood. You serve the cosmos with eventually real acknowledging what is here. So you look at what vision means to you. And for me, vision, for a lot of long time, it was oriented to my personality. So I had different purposes and visions. Like in one moment, I felt like I wanted to go do that, and in another moment, I felt like the world should be like this. And so there were these various ways. However, my contentment eventually came down to the presence of the moment. It's as if the person is seeing words being written, and it's like, where are these words being written? It's so unknown, and suddenly discovers the empty page. When you realize the empty page, that's kind of like how the linguistic simulation exists. Okay, so science is finding itself at a very strange position, because it looks at the objective data, but then understands that the objective data needs to go to a subjective place, because people are existing in society as thoughts and ideas of themselves. They have names. So eventually, the data of the sensory exists where how the individual is composed of the known and the unknown. So how, or who you think you are right now, I can, it's fair to say that it's part of it is based on your memories, part of it is based on, let's say, what you're imagining, and part of it is just based on what is here. By the way, guys, if there's anybody listening, don't fear throwing a spear at an unknown sky. We are in the era of advanced communication. We are at a point in this civilization where these creatures are constantly finding an ability to see more, be more, try more things. And we're starting from a primitive position. It's as if, like, it's very funny. This is a playful theory I have. It's kind of like one of those Mr.Within theories, on existence, that I am saying that the body is kind of moving forward in time from the past to, like, let's say, to the future. The physical body is moving in that way, it can be said. And I believe the mind is coming from the future to the past. So it's as if it's like there's a symmetrical, polar opposite thing going on. Our minds are reflecting a different dimensions behavior, or an unknown behavior for that. It's as if we get freaked out by aliens, but we don't get surprised that we are conscious entities. We are alive once. And because we're alive once, what is the value? That's the mystical quest. That's where mysticism begins. When you suddenly find yourself somewhere so real and so, it's as if your mind surrenders to the moment. And when your mind surrenders to the moment, thoughts stop occurring, and you're just watching as the moment. And as you watch as the moment, suddenly you kind of shatter out of remembering yourself as an identity. So strangely, you let go of your memory, all your memories in this lifetime, the way you were holding them, and you hold the memory in a different way. And how you hold it is as one moment. So before, you were just a body in a world, you know, you were just like the objective component and also the subjective component of your moment of being. But this is when you become the moment of being. It's as if, holy shit, your soul is not some ethereal kind of, or like Photoshop opacity kind of low opacity version of you. You know, it's not like a ghost and stuff like that. That's such foolishness. That's just a digital innovation for me. Ghost is like somebody found a way to like animate something. However, in reality, I find it's non-conceptual and it is non-dual, and it is not just shaped. So the problems of you that are in view suddenly are seen, that because the system is more complex and integrative. It's like, this is something funny, guys. The moment all the good people in the world united, suddenly all the evil people realized that because they were the ones left out, they were all united as well. And it's this mentality where chaos and order are in this endless dance. We just open our eyes and a part of it. So imagine like every 1,000 years there's a chaotic movement and there's an ordered movement. Chaotic movement. I'm using this as an example. I'm kind of telling you, not just the seasons of the body change, the seasons of the mind change as well. And the mind holds the world, and the world is kept by the subjective implication, as if what I'm telling you is objectivity's meaning has subjective roots, and its subjectivity's meaning has in some sense unknown roots, and unknown roots in some sense implies the ultimate acceptance of it. It's as if like when you get to a door you haven't opened, it doesn't matter what philosophy you have to just accept the moment. You have to try and see if the door is open or not, you know. There was a man by the name of Diogenes. He was a Greek philosopher, and some people call him the father of cynicism. So it's as if where cynicism was first recorded as a sort of approach with of a psychological and philosophical depth was kind of like when Diogenes kind of lived. Philosophies often reflect the intelligent behavior of reality, so therefore they reflect the author. It's as if the word spoken is born out of the view. It's like the author. I don't know how to tell you, but anyways, Diogenes was a kind of like badass philosopher, and what he would do is he would get a lantern back in the day, and he chose to live as a homeless person. Like, I mean, I still wonder if like that was necessary or not, but I guess he was doing it for history's help. I don't know, as a contribution to history. Well, whatever. He was this whole, like kind of like homeless philosopher, but he was somebody who would go challenge Plato and make fun of Plato, like in front of his face and his crew and whatnot. And Plato was like, would get enlightened by Diogenes. But anyways, Diogenes would get a lantern and he would run in the streets, you know, in the day. So he had a light, like a lit lantern in the day, run in the streets, and people were like, "Oh my God, what is Diogenes doing now?" And Diogenes is running in the streets and says, he's sorry, he doesn't say anything. Diogenes is running in the streets as if he's looking for something with the lantern, and somebody comes to him Somebody came up to Diogenes and was like, "Hey man, what are you doing? You have a lantern lit in the day? Like that's a waste. What are you doing, Diogenes?" And Diogenes looked at the man and he said, "What am I doing?" Like kind of Robert De Niro, kind of like, "You talking to me? You talking to me?" Something like that. And Diogenes looks at him and says, "I'm looking for an honest man." And Diogenes was on like he was homeless objectively, but internally he was living in a totally different depth of life. So he was trying to revoke kind of it was his unique attempt. Like trust me, he was a very compassionate being, Diogenes, because it's very hard to challenge society when you love it. It's very hard. It's very hard to when you love someone and they're doing something wrong, but they don't want to change themselves, as if in their mind they haven't found a way to a different approach. It's as if it's a kind of you're seeing inefficiency from the distance, and all you can do is look at the sky and ask it to shine brighter. We human beings live through stories. The story you tell yourself defines you. Mr. Within is saying the story you tell yourself changes. You don't have the same sense of self as you had when you were 5 years old or 10 years old or whatever. You simply see that it's changing. It's for me it's like just have your own authentic exploration of your moment of intelligence, and what else do you need? What greater teaching can there be than a mirror? So for the mystic, he's trying to find the mirror of his mind. He's trying to find a mirror where he can see the truth of his mind. That mirror was through a sort of attainment towards stillness and silence. This stillness and silence would lead the being to something strange, as if when you stop moving, you stop being, being a sense of doership, like you stop being a doer. It's as if the easiest way, whenever there's inefficiency in reality, is to just stop everything, like shut down the computer for a second, you know? And it's like, in that moment, suddenly comes the space. So, kind of like you gotta create space in your house for new furniture. You gotta, in some sense, uh, have new experiences that reveal unknown uh, depths and a sort of unknown context where new ways can be conceived. So you gotta kind of design reality. It's as if many people are trying to find truth, seldom realizing you gotta create it. But as you create it, you see you are creating it with the past, as if you're using the data from the past to create projections of your future and wonder about the potentials in regards to how the present is being, and you see that the present can move instantly. It's as if the person's destiny is very easily changes based on them relocating to a different environment. So one can say a person's destiny is actually the movement of their environment. And the ship, after billions of years, the world's like, okay, let me see that kind of man, human being I have here every couple billion years, and then the human being popped out, and in some sense, man began revering the gods. That means the creation became conscious of the creator, and as its attention to the creator remained, cause and an effect become an instant, become instantaneous. And this Indian kind of enlightened sage by the name of Kabir, somebody asked him how long does it take to get enlightened, and he said half of an instant. And you know, Kabir has this other quote, and he says, "Student," as if he's shouting to his student. He says, "Student, tell me what is God." And the student looks at him and says, "He is the breath inside the breath." And these are all implications of the acceptance of the presence of the moment of intelligence beyond just how the personality sees it. And so you serve the cosmos by being the natural vision you are, being aware. Rumi tells us out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing. There is a place. I will meet you there. And when the soul sits on that grass, the world is too full to talk about. This quote of Jalaluddin Maulana Rumi, it's as if you don't understand. We think like 700 years ago, people didn't know what they were, like they didn't have access to science and technology and all this. But they had such a deep access to their depth. Like, think of it this way: we became civilized, right? So when we became civilized, if we say imagination is a reflection of reality, and the reality of our ancestors was more savage, so we can say that their imagination was also wilder. And as we became more civilized, the imagination, due to the powerful forces of the powerful organizational forces of the environment, they began kind of rejecting the vastness for the sophistication of the small. It's as if it's like because we wanted to do something for ourselves, we forgot the world in the process. Anyways, guys, I feel the concepts that I wanted to share for this talk have, in some sense, been communicated. So, thanks for tuning in. And eventually, I find the person will get bored of this mentality of fear and greed and all this stuff. Everything that's inefficient for you, once you start being honest, it just fades. It's as if like you suddenly the way you solve the problem is by realizing you never needed to have it. You know. Be free before you need to be. Much blessings and namaste.